Hey everybody, back here with another episode of Wilmington Spotlight. My special guest today, Nicole Putney, an English teacher in the area. Right?
I am, yes. Yeah. I've been teaching for 20 years.
20 years?
Yeah.
Since 2005.
Well, actually, it's actually early. Let's just call it 20.
Okay, we'll just call it 20. Okay. All right, we're rounding. So you're an English teacher. Got
it.
Okay, good. All right, so you're also a Wilmington resident, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So you've been in Wilmington for how long now?
We moved here in 2007. 2008 maybe? Yeah, 2008. Yep.
And you raised 2 kids in Wilmington.
Sure
and
did.
Ipso facto, also the reason why I'm in Wilmington indirectly, because you are my sister-in-law, full disclosure.
I recruited a lot of my friends and family to come up
Yep.
and live in Wilmington with me. And I love it. It's a great town, great community. And
It is.
I'm glad you're here. You're
Thanks.
You're like Wilmington's #1 fan though, Austin. So
We have a great spotlight show. Yeah. No, we have some fun with it. And that's one of the reasons why we kind of bring in different personalities, different angles, different aspects of the community. And one of the more important aspects of any community is the educational aspect of the community, right? I think it's the future,
yeah,
in any form. I always tell somebody, like, anything, like, I stay pretty apolitical, obviously, on the show and anywhere pretty much as a banker. Like, we stay apolitical, but in reality, I tell anyone, like, really, whatever you politically believe in, it'll be benefited through the educational system. So, like, if you say, like, I believe in, like, let's say, I don't know, if you support the military and you want, weapons, who do you think designs those? Like, at the end of the day, any industry that you believe in, that you're for, that you're pro, is going to benefit from the core of education in the country, right?
Right. It's true. I know it sounds cliche. Like, I work with the future of America, but it is actually kind of true when you think about it that way. There really is. And everyone is impacted by what these kids are doing and what they're learning, because what they're learning is going to be our futures, really. Like, they're the future decision makers.
Right.
So we want to make sure that they know how to get themselves informed and develop their own opinions based on what they've learned.
It's funny because I think they are the future decision makers, and you probably see them at the scariest point of their development. So it's like, because you now teach what, high school aged?
I do, yeah. I've taught in elementary, and then now I teach high school. I've taught middle school. I've done it all. And I don't know what the scariest is.
Well, sometimes you got to pause, look around the room and say, this is the future. This is the leaders of tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I know. People are always like, oh, you taught middle school. How'd you do that? Oh, you taught, high school. That's
tough age.
They're right. But
it's tough age to live, let alone surround yourself with and work with. This is a tough time to be a human. Like,
I know. I feel like the way that I do it and I think about it is like, I was that age once, and I try to remember myself when I was that age and think about, my own past of how uninformed I was or how naive I was and how I thought I knew everything.
Yeah.
And it's so hard when you look back at that, and you can't even be, you can't feel negatively about a kid once you picture you at that age, because you're like, oh, I was doing the best I could. I didn't realize
100%.
About
ignorance
reality.
Is bliss. You didn't know, right?
Exactly.
You didn't know what you didn't know.
Exactly. And then as a parent too, you see it in your own kids growing up. I think being a parent has made me a better teacher, because there's a level of understanding you get to see. As a teacher, I get to see those kids from 7, 3 or whatever, but as a parent, I see where they go after that and how they have, just like you do, just like I do, we have a whole other set of responsibilities and our whole other life outside of the classroom too. So that helps you understand maybe some of the behaviors or some of the things that kids do and say a little bit better.
And those are the best teachers, the ones that can empathize with, I think, where people are at sometimes. Like, we've all been there. It's so easy to forget, but it's like, no, we've all been there.
For sure.
Well, that's beautiful. And so that's good. So you have taken experience out of the home, which is weird because growing up, and I will say this about teachers, right? You never really picture them having other responsibilities. You picture them living and ending and breathing inside the classroom. Like, you see them in a supermarket, you're like, what are you doing here? And you're like, getting food. And you're like, why? What? Why are you not
Don't
at the
they feed you?
classroom? Do you sleep not in the room?
Oh my gosh, it's always so funny to like see
weirdly
a teacher
enough,
out in the wild.
It's where you pull a bunch of your worldly experiences in order to bring back into the classroom that, according to everybody in the classroom, doesn't exist for you. Because I remember this thinking about teachers. I don't know why. You spend so much time with them, and you really spend as much time with teachers. It kind of evens out over the years, but it's a lot like, other than your parents, I don't think anybody else on the planet really spends more time with you growing up, right?
Right.
Friends.
elementary school teachers are super impactful in anyone's life, and the climate that they bring into the classroom, it's their personality, really, you know.
Right.
Like if you think
You remember
about
the colorful like kindergarten teachers, like the vests, and like you
Right,
picture it.
right.
It's the woman that like macaroni glued to everything.
it helps you become like
Right.
who you are, whether you're going to be like unsettled by change, or did your teacher really do a good job with transitions, and are you going to be like worried about failure, or did you learn, oh, it's okay, we'll just try again, so a thousand different decisions that teachers make in the course of one day. There's this thing, in teachers, like teacher tired. Like there's a whole different type of tired. And I've just been on break recently, and I found myself with like so much energy to do things. And I thought maybe it's like the seasonal, like the change of weather makes you a little, and then I realized like, no, I've been doing other things all day. Like errands, checking in with my parents, keeping very busy. But at the same time, at the end of the day, I am not like ready to like faint on my couch, because it's just, there's like that exhaustion that comes with making all the decisions that you need to do when you're in the middle of a classroom full of, children that aren't qualified to make any sort of decision for themselves. So, but yeah, it's been...
That's some insight behind the scenes to what it's like. So like basically, as you say it, I got 20 kids all day. I've been a parent all day long. By the time I get home, I got nothing in my tank because I've been giving so much to our kids in the classrooms. Yeah. I think that's something we forget too, because you drop them off, I pick them up, right? So then I'm seeing that part. Forget the 8 hours in between.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
True.
And then it's like not thinking about the teacher fatigue or any sort of tiredness that you guys might.
The one nice thing about teaching older students is that you can leave to use the restroom whenever you want.
Oh, that's a good point.
There are teachers I know that don't drink water through
Right.
the day, and they don't feel well. And then I was like, well, you've got to hydrate. And she's like, yeah, I know, but I feel, and like, you can like open your door or grab someone from the hallway, but it's just like it's hard to be a human and a teacher at the same time and like live up to all of those expectations. It seems like something silly that, like we just kind of take for granted, but, it's like these small little things about being a teacher that you can't really explain to somebody else unless they've been in the situation, I guess.
Yeah, because I guess you guys would have to, dealing with the population, dealing with, like you said, there's a dependency there, like for you guys to show up with your A game every day. Like there is no, like, I can just show up half.
Yes.
Just in the parenting world, the very same analogy to that is like, when you have the kid, you're like, wait, this for every weekend for 18. This doesn't turn off. Like there is no shutting this down.
Right.
You don't get a weekend off here to go back for a minute.
It
no.
is.
And that's, I guess, where you're at with, you can look at that with the teacher being in that same boat of like, you can't have bad days. They can. You can't. It's just really not allowed. Where it could be, it's just not going to work for anyone, right?
Right. Yeah. No, this is true.
So 20 years, that's good. So you've been doing this for 20 years, and so that's actually so it's funny. That's right around the last time I was back in the school systems. It was right around when you started, and things have probably changed a bit from what I, assume a generational gap. I don't know. I think I'm finally feeling it.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I have no doubt, just because of in the workplace, it has completely shifted, is technology, whether it be in the classroom, whether it be used in the classroom or around the classroom. So I like the show to always be positive too. So we'll start on the positives of the technology that have been brought into the classrooms, things that you guys actually utilize it's better. Like for instance, I don't think there is a snow day anymore. I don't think there is. I think it's a work from home day, which some kids might not enjoy. It depends on where you go, but some kids might not enjoy that. It might be healthier for everyone's mental health, like you said. But so there might be positives, but then there's definitely, as we all know, some negatives to the technology side of it. So
yeah, it's tricky. I actually am a really big advocate for using technology in the classroom. I love it. I don't think I could or would want to go back to.
So you embrace.
Oh yeah, every step of the way.
Which is huge for a teacher because that's the change of that society. That's the future, right?
Well, I feel like I'm like, my age is like it's like I'm on like the cusp of things, right? So like we didn't have computers in our classrooms. We had like those old time like typing,
the Mac ones,
right? Yeah, exactly, an Apple IIe type of thing, you know.
Oregon Trail,
right?
That was
Oregon,
me.
Oregon
I stepped
Trail.
up a little bit, but not really. I was on like that little big block thing,
right? So I'm like a weird like the end of Gen X, beginning of like millennials, where like I remember a time of school before computers, and then I also like I'm not like too intimidated to learn something new, right? And so like I can catch on easily to things and
kind of the straddle.
Yeah, exactly. So I have actually loved everything about teaching with technology because it's helped me individualize education in my own classroom with my own group, you know? So using Google Docs instead of, I mean, I couldn't even imagine teaching kids that didn't have access to like a word processing app, like because, you know, they wouldn't even understand to like go home and rewrite a paper. Like
Tuesday, I was at the car wash. On this note, I was at the car wash Tuesday, and there was a woman sitting over in a chair, and she had a stack of papers on her lap and a pen. And there was no doubt in my mind, the only person on the planet that still works in a stack of papers like that, I was like, she's grading papers, I bet.
Wow.
Because that's the only way I could see anyone in any industry still needing to collect that many papers from people, like, you know, because and immediately, and then so I looked closer, and she's
grading her papers.
She was checking off checks, and I'm thinking to myself, I wonder, because you got to give a test. You don't do that on tablets, do you? Do you utilize like, you know, the technology for everything?
Yeah, well, because I'm an English teacher, we don't do so many tests.
Essays, things like that.
Mostly essays, mostly debates, projects. Right. If I do give a test, it's pretty rare. And then I guess I would use paper. I have. But they have apps that you can also use, you know. There's a little bit that's like, it's like pros and cons because there, you know, there's a lot of easy academic dishonesty that could happen, right? Because if you have the internet right there, you can look up the answers. You know? So it depends on what the assessment is. You have to like kind of roll with it and see what the best option is. But there's no such thing as like a grammar workbook anymore, or like everything is done on an individual basis. It's almost like gamified for the kids to go through and like learn the different sentence parts and to learn your vocabulary, your sentence structure. It's done online now.
With the world changing the way it is, right? So for instance, I learned cursive, and now everything I need to have typed, right? Everything's got to be typed. So that's the future, right? Everything's got to be passed in paper form. I mean, in electronic form. And this is almost the way of the world, right? But I used to have teachers that would like refuse to like adapt on this stuff because it's like, this is how it's going to be moving forward. You seem to like accept that. You're like, hey, look, like, you know, it's much easier to teach when you're meeting them on their level of communication. So if this is how they all communicate, why not use it to teach with them, right?
We have to be forward thinking, but then you also can't be throw caution to the wind, right? Because you're thinking it's like and especially teachers who are even just a little bit older than me have like a higher threshold for or a lower threshold for like learning new things. Like it's super challenging. These amazing educators can't be as effective because of the situation the technology is kind of like put upon the.
Well, with that too, and you said like there's room for economic dishonesty and stuff, right? Academic dishonesty, sorry. Well, with that question is like, so like, for instance, you just said like, so when someone's taking a test, if Google's right next to them, that's the world today. We operate with Google right next to us. So if you're giving a kid a test today, wouldn't you adapt the beast to that? Because like, yeah, the kid's going to have Google at his fingertips. It's like saying when our math teachers used to take our calculators away from us all.
Right.
So what are you doing though? And so I get it. Cause it's like, are you going to adapt to that beast that the kid, I get there's a line there because then the kid knows nothing if you really break it down to that. But there was a great article I saw, and a teacher like yourself, right? She had a couple of her son and her son's friends over the house, and she thought to herself, they opened the ice tray out of the freezer and they took the ice cube tray out, and 3 of them looked at it, and they were all in their teens, and none of them knew how to get the ice cubes out of the ice cube tray. And she thought to herself, this is it. This is the end of humanity. This is the end of all of society. One of them whips out a phone, YouTubes it,
Yeah.
and within 3 minutes, all of them are drinking drinks with ice cubes in them. And she goes, maybe I just misjudged the situation. Like, maybe that's not something they ever need to have it. That's not space they need to take up, right?
Right. No,
but there's a
true.
line there because, like, then at that point, someone's like, I don't need to learn history because it's all obviously on the internet. So,
Right. It's
So what do you do?
very tricky because you want to be able to teach students content, but skills are
Right.
maybe more important in this day
That's
and
it.
age, right? But you also can't just teach skills. Like, I want my kids to know, the
So
the
history doesn't
locations of
repeat,
certain
right.
countries, and
Yeah. That's important,
They
right?
can't really understand the news if they don't understand where
Right.
they are on a map, right? So like, these are things that you have to test, right? Like, or if you or like vocabulary in languages, right? So you need to be able to just memorize stuff sometimes, and it's hard, and it's really hard for kids now because I really do think their brains are changing. Like, I have seen just attention spans just shorten.
The TikTok generation.
Just, yeah. And you really, like, I don't ever talk in my classroom for more than like 5 minutes in a row because I know no one is going to pay attention to anything I say after minute 4.
We used to go through 8 hours straight.
Yeah, no, I know. It's not like that
8
anymore.
Straight hours, which I think is good because that's not how the work world is anymore.
Right. No. And I mean, but there's got to be like a happy medium, right?
Right.
Like, I don't think any kid should have to sit through like an hour and a half lecture. You know, I don't think that's an
Right.
effective strategy for teaching, but I am worried about the shrinking attention span and just the general like disinterest in like hard mental work, right?
So we're getting down to some of the negatives, I think, on the technology side of this.
True.
Right?
Yeah. Because so much is instant gratification and
It's how they're trained, right?
right. And
Brain training in a way, the way our
is.
phones and we swipe and we flip and
it is. Yeah. And so I've noticed this in my own students, and they don't even like to pay attention to videos. Like, remember when you were in
right, because you were like
you were in elementary
when they
school
pushed in the car.
the car, you knew?
Someday
Yes.
we were
yes.
watching a movie. It was the greatest.
Right. Right. So fun. So fun. They will not watch a movie without a phone. Like, they have phones and they can't stop watching the phones to watch the movie. And so it was then I was like, well, this is problematic. So everything I do now is in like smaller bites. Like, if I wouldn't watch a whole movie, we would have to watch like the first 20 minutes and then have to take notes on it. It's
Most people at the house probably do when they watch a movie at the house.
That's
Unless
what-
they're in a
no,
movie theater.
for
I think
sure.
this is the way of a lot of people these days. You're right.
Yes.
Because if you're in a work meeting and the person that's running the meeting isn't in the room, everybody's on their phone on the
Yeah.
side. If the person's in the room, obviously you gotta,
exactly.
kind of hide a little bit.
The
still on
problem
phone.
comes though when you then have to assess what students have learned from watching the film, and they're like, "Oh, I don't really remember," because when you split your attention, your comprehension goes down. So they're kind of self-sabotaging, but they don't know, they don't realize it until it's too late. When they say, "Oh, well, yeah, I can do 2 things at once. I can do 3 things at once." You don't understand, you know. But I do understand because I try to do it myself, and then I think, "Oh wait, what was I supposed to do now?" You know, like that. Like, "Oh wait, yeah, no, you're right."
I rewind like things that we're watching. Like
Yeah,
sometimes I'll be like,
yeah,
"Oh,"
I was
and
not paying attention to that plot
No
point.
idea what just happened.
But you know, but it's like when you're learning in a group of 25 people, you can't be like, "Oh, I actually had a text message I was dealing with, so can you review that
Can
for
you
me?"
rewind to 15 seconds? Everyone cool with this?
Exactly.
Everybody good?
So
Yeah.
if I have a video to show them about content, I'll say, "Okay, I have a video today. Don't worry, it's just 5 minutes." And they're like, "Okay, we can do 5 minutes." Like, that is really and truly their
We'll
reaction.
give you the commit to 5
Yeah.
minutes.
And there's
No worries,
different
Mr.
types
Putney.
of learners. Like some kids are like, "Oh, what's the documentary about today?" Like, they're gonna get into it, and then some kids are just it's not for them. You know, school and the way that we've set up our system of education, it's not for every type of learner. Like,
That is a big problem, I think. And
yeah.
that I think has been an age-old problem because that's the thing that our generation dealt with. Even before the technology, we had kids that strived through certain things and were like, this isn't the way I learned through other things. Like some
Yeah.
loved the movie days. Some were like, this isn't me. Some love book days. You know, it is what it is. So yeah, no, I think that's an age-old property. I think when you talk about how every generation's like, this generation's lazy or this generation's we're screwed with this generation at the helm.
Right.
Every generation's been said that about.
Exactly.
So like those are the things I hear and I'm like, that's generational.
Yeah.
But you guys have a giant balancing act to do, it seems like. with the technology that is 100% coming the last 20 years, like I said, since I've been in school to now. I remember when we got Blackboard in college and we were hyped. Everyone was like, you don't need to get a syllabus. Like, you can lose your syllabus physically and you can get another one and just print it. It's right there on a website. Like, they were like, what do you mean? They're like, yeah, we just put it there. And it's like held there.
Right.
Crazy, right?
Crazy ideas, yeah.
But then the pass in paper thing started happening when the professor started saying, now you have to pass in electronically. And like a whole generation of our excuses of like papers like not being printed right or things not saving on a disk drive. There's so many excuses, like dogs ate your home or anything. It doesn't matter anymore. And everything was time-stamped all of a sudden, right? Because like you couldn't accidentally pass it in a day late. Oh, it was under the pile. You didn't see it. There's none of that anymore. It's time-stamped. So like there were a few changes we saw as we were on our way out the door. But over the last 20 years, it's been night and day. So there's a balancing act to do here. Now, two things I really want to touch on and really wrap on some of these things, but AI, real quick. AI has been a both plus and negative. AI can write full papers in seconds. AI can also proofread full papers in seconds. AI has passed the bar. AI has also gotten lawyers disbarred, right? Because they didn't proofread case law that didn't exist, and they were disbarred. So it's done both passed the bar and disbarred lawyers.
Yep.
It's a pretty powerful tool. I remember the day I saw it for the first time. I watched a presentation on it within like 20 minutes. I was outside of the presentation calling my bosses. Not because I saw all the positivities, which I did. I got super excited and knew this would change my career. I was like, everything's going to change. But I actually saw the negatives of it right away. I was like, somebody could document a full loan in seconds and hand it to us. And we could hand them the money if we don't have any defense against technology. So what we found is AI versus AI. That's what we've started noticing is we use the AI against the AI. So like, so how does that play into today? How does that work? Because I can get on ChatGPT right now and write you any paper you want on any book you ask for.
It's
Putney.
true.
I can get it, you know,
it's true.
500 words, 750.
I mean, I've gotten them. I've gotten all of them.
Yeah. So,
you know?
So how does that? Are you guys using AI now to combat AI?
Yeah,
that's exactly what
I do.
most businesses are figuring.
I do. Yeah.
So you guys have system to put it through and things to see.
Well, I have my own brain, first of all, which
doesn't match the person sometimes.
Yeah. So I have the kids do, when I first meet them, you know, some different activities, and I file those away. And I'm all about, in not just for academic honesty reasons, but I measure their growth over time as writers, right?
Gotcha.
So I want to see, like, if they can, you know, let's just say, like, have a solid introduction and use, you know, a thesis statement and something.
Miss.
Right. So
subject predicates.
Yeah. So like chat
right.
doesn't always do it the way that I would teach them to do it. So if this is an excellent paper and I realize that the thesis statement is not in the format that we've discussed and we've reinforced in class, I'm like, then I hate to have to keep looking, but I do. And then I look at the timestamp because I actually have an app where, or an extension on my browser, where if you click a button, it tells you when everything was written. So if there was a large bit of cut and paste from somewhere else, you can see that. So, but what kids do is sometimes then they will just type what chat says, like on their phone.
I'll just retype it out. I already thought about it.
Right, exactly. But that also, it's like a video playback of what's happening. So then I can just I call them up to my desk and I'm like, why did you do it like this? And then usually there's a conversation that we have, and like that's just,
most of the time they'll come clean.
Right. And you know what? Not to say I don't blame them, but it's so easy. It's so easy. And it's
like
so,
a calculator.
Their lives are so hard. They're like, I don't mean to be like so hard.
Right,
like, right. But like they're busy. They're under stress. Their parents want good grades. They have a million other things to do. And they don't really care about the Great Gatsby. They see this as something that's not applicable to.
We did a survey this morning in the office, and the last 3 people that answered, I was last, and I said it was Great Gatsby. We did what's your favorite high school reading book?
Oh, really? You like that one?
Last 3 of us said it. 3 people in a row. We all said Great Gatsby.
Wow.
And people don't enjoy these anymore now?
No.
So AI and all that.
Yeah.
Well, then, so let's go to the other aspect of all this, because I think there's a huge component to all this, mental health. When it comes to social media, when it comes to technology, when it comes to, like, we just started to get into it. So that's why that was our last part I kind of wanted to pivot into. And you just started touching on it. These kids have schedules like they're corporate Americans. Like,
yes, they do.
What are you doing, kid? Like, I look at some of them, I'm like, you have my schedule. Like, you have multiple commitments, you have multiple, but you're not a grown man in business. Like, you're a kid who should be relaxing a little bit more. And I think I see a lot of tension. Like, for instance, when I got back into hockey, I'll never forget. they were like, the game's changed. And like, I didn't understand what they meant at first. Like, I understood that like we don't use certain tapes anymore because they mark the boards. Like, so there were actual physical attributes to the game where I was like, learning curve. Because I'm walking around asking people for it, and everyone's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, it couldn't be this off, right? And maybe I got the name wrong. That's the physical attributes to hockey that I noticed changed. But what I didn't realize was that 5-year-olds get one-on-one tutoring now. And like, kids are in private programs that now take 4 years. So back in the day, if you were in 1990, you could make an elite team, let's say. And the team was, let's say, called the, I don't know, back then I'm trying to come up with a politically correct name. We had a lot of bad ones back then, but the Dinosaurs, just because there's one on the shelf, right?
Sounds good.
So the 90 Dinosaurs was a select team. If you played in your town, you played up on a higher level, you'd go into these like elite programs. Now there's 4 years, 4 teams for every year. So basically, if you just want to pay, you can play on these elite programs. So every kid's in these elite programs, every kid's getting one-on-one tutoring. And at one point I turned around when one of the mothers goes, do you think he needs more? Like, do you think he's not getting this? I turned around and I said, everyone understands that these kids are 5. That the only thing they should be transitioning to when it comes to like getting off the ice is like Paw Patrol and like chicken nuggets. Like, but we've started at that age with high schedules, these massively busy schedules. The sports are no longer like, they're very organized. It's almost like, you know, kids do 3, 4 of those. They're building their resumes up. Like,
we've changed the way that childhood is now, and I don't think for the better, really.
Yeah.
So I'll segue into my book recommendation, because English teachers always bring books to read, right? So I read this a couple months ago, The Anxious Generation. And it's, the subtitle is How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness. And the book is great. Like, I would recommend it even if you're not a parent. And it just explains, you know, why this generation is the way that they are, you know, because they didn't have, kids get phones when they're like, what?
Yep.
4th grade, maybe, because their parents think of it as a safety concern. But I didn't have a phone in 4th grade. Did you? No, they didn't exist. And so sometimes my parents just simply didn't know where I was. And that was life.
Back then.
Yeah, it was okay back then. And so
It's
basically,
probably still okay today.
This is what I'm saying.
Right.
But we don't think of it as okay, because we think we're doing a disservice to our children by not having the ability to be in constant contact with them. Like, something that is always like really unsettling is the like Alice drills in schools, like the emergency drills, right? So if we have a drill, what happens is that when we started to do this, you know, a couple of years back, kids would text their parents. Then like, oh, I'm nervous, it's an Alice drill. Then the parents would then like text the kid back, oh, I'm nervous now, like, you know, and then the parents would be calling the school, but then the school was fielding so many phone calls, you couldn't get through to the school, because so that every parent is panicked during the drill, you know, because you have to be in constant contact with your child. But like, if you're dropping your child off at school, I get it. I'm a parent too. It makes me crazy sometimes to think like, and I know, you know, your generation, like everyone is worried about not being in constant contact with their kids. But I just hope that, but I feel like phones are more of a problem than a solution for this, right? The book also argues that students today, children have a great deal of anxiety because they're not allowed to take risks and fail. Right? Like,
I was just thinking that. Fail.
Yeah. Why
is it such a big deal to fail? That's how you win. You lose.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You have to.
There's not a lot of
that causes the fear to shoot. That causes the pause moment, because nobody wants to jump. Right. Jump. You might miss. That's the whole point. Who knows?
Yeah.
It used to be a lot more okay.
It's not now, because
why? Nobody's perfect. That's an illusion.
I know. I think that there's a lot of pressure that we put on our children. We don't mean to. We're just trying to set them up to succeed in life. Yeah. But that is equally true, right? If you're given a lot of things, then you expect to maybe have to give back. I don't know, but it's a challenge for sure. Also, that the kids never like are bored. They don't just, I don't know, you're not creative. I guess boredom drives
creativity.
Exactly.
Right. No doubt about it. That there's probably been some incredible things invented when somebody had a moment to think.
Right. And
it's not the worst thing in the world to have a moment to think and process, right?
For sure. For sure.
But that's also dead almost these days.
Well, I think that's why a lot of kids are getting into like...
All right, the second we stop.
Well, that's the thing. I feel bad too, because in my classroom in the mornings or whatever, I'll say, the kids come into my room and they're like, hi guys, how's it going? Oh, good. Hi, Miss Putney, and they come in, and then instead of talking to each other before the day starts, they just sit on their phones. I'm like, oh no, all of your friends are here in the room with you. Like maybe they're not your friends, but like this is when you have to like learn how to make awkward small talk, and that's also covered in the book. We've taken that hardship away from kids.
Does that book cover walking through a TikTok parking or walking through a Trader Joe's parking lot and like having to get around girls TikToking against walls and stuff? Because like, does it cover that part of the book? Because like I always think I get it, because like I've had like interns at the office that have like, we're going outside and they're on the telephone pole in the parking lot doing TikTok. So like I get it, but like if I was 50 years older, those might throw me, like walking through somewhere trying to be like, realizing the camera's set up and you're walking through like a filming, you're like, it's got to be mind blowing a little bit.
It is.
But, I can see where it'd be a little bit of a culture shock to like 40 years ago. Right. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be said there with the pressures that are put on. I don't know if it's societal too these days. Like there is a big competitive streak in the world with that. Like, and I think it's always been kind of like, your kids are your kids, so they're your focus. By nature, you don't really have a lot of other kids to focus on if you have your kids. Yeah. So then it's like your only project, and depending on your personality, it's good to probably assess yourself in that. It's like, if I'm the type A, like I break things type, like, better be careful not to try to do that with the humans I'm trying to build, right? It's like,
It's really challenging, but I feel like technology has been
it's here.
Whether or
not we love it or not. But you can say it's been a positive thing, right?
It's been positive, but I also feel like it's super, like as a teacher, I remember when I first saw YouTube. I feel so old sometimes when I tell like stories like this, but I was visiting a school and they had just installed a computer lab, but they didn't have any internet filters in the computer lab. And so part of like the, the checking of the system and like the accreditation of the school is like, you can't have the kids have unfiltered internet in a school building, right? So, but it was, no one really, it was new.
It was Wild West back then.
It sure was. So I was like, well, could you get to anything? And then, so one of the younger kids was like, well, yeah, you get on YouTube all the time. And I was like, how do you spell it? YouTube? Like, I didn't even know. And I was like, oh yeah, you can't get onto anything. So that's a problem. But then that's when I first saw YouTube, and I was like, oh my God, this changes everything. If you can like you can just search a video and it could tell you how to figure out an ice tray or whatever, this changes teaching entirely. And when I saw Chat GPT, I thought the same thing. This is a game changer. This changes teaching entirely.
The immediate thought you had by seeing both YouTube and ChatGPT is, this is a tool that will change my profession forever.
100%. It's going to change not just my profession, but like my whole
That's why you're on,
world.
Because you're a great teacher. That shows that you are a great teacher right there in a nutshell, is because somebody says, it's like Mozart. I look at a piano and I see exactly that, a thing that a lot of people keep in their living room. He sees something entirely different when he looks at it, right? And he uses it an entirely different way. I would have never thought to be like, YouTube is actually a teacher that is out there on the planet now permanently for everyone 24/7. I didn't even think of that. That's what that is. That's a conduit to information of someone physically in front of you speaking. Which, by the way, if that's on the screen in the boardroom, everybody's on their cell phone. So yes, I get it. It's one of those, better be 5 minutes here.
5 minutes, that's it.
Nowadays, that's what it's like with everything though. Even every single time you walk out of a meeting, that could have been an email. Like, we can't even stand meetings anymore. Like, if they're like, we've cut them down to like quarterly, and people still like,
people don't read emails like, though either.
That too.
It's hard, it's like, it's just the passing of information. That's basically what teaching is. But it's just hard to.
Those, I guess that's a great way to put it. It's the passing of information. But I think what's changed is the conduits from which you guys are using, like the actual like ways that you guys are shipping that information out. Even 20 years ago was not this.
Yeah, no, it's a game changer, and it keeps on changing. And I feel like that's like any profession, that you really have to keep growing with the changes. It's just challenging because we're not in the business of like selling things, or we're not in the, like, if teachers fail, you know, we don't just have like a bad third quarter. You know what I mean? Like,
we have a bad future in general
So-
in the country. So don't do that.
Yeah, the stakes are a little higher.
You're right. People underestimate it. It's like, stakes pretty high for them. Everything in the future, our Social Security, our future. So, well, thanks for coming on, Nicole. This was great.
Yeah,
and
this was
one
fun.
more time, what was the book?
It's called The Anxious Generation.
That's cool.
It's been it's pretty popular, and it's one of the things, like, if your school or your community has I know Bill's school did this, the Wait Until 8th pledge. So where the people try to get together with other folks in the same town or community or social situation and pledge that they won't get their child a device until they're in 8th grade. So that's kind of, that's why that's its claim to fame here. New York Times bestseller, and something to think about.
That is something to think about. There's a great debate there. A whole show could be done on that.
We could do a whole show on that later, yeah.
Well, thank you, Nicole.
All right, my
Appreciate you coming
pleasure.
on today.
Thanks, Austin.